settings quickly. Sorry, I'm still a little groggy from this past weekend. It just took a lot out of me. Michigan Comic-Con was fantastic, and now we're switching gears. So we wore Scarecrow and Mad Moxie last weekend. The next three weeks, I don't have any cosplay planned for progress. Instead, we are going to do our Chinese Empress inspired wedding gown. So in the mail today, first off, you can see we've got the mock-up that we did on a prior Twitch stream here. It's ready to be disassembled. All the fabric pieces are ready to be transferred to actual fabric. And when we say actual fabric, in this package should be the fabric that I need. I was at the post office this morning when they opened up at 8:30 to pick up this package, and I've been so nervous and anxious to open it that I haven't yet. A part of me is afraid that if it's wrong, there's no turning back now. I have to use whatever is inside this package. So yeah, let's open it together. I've got to be careful because I can feel, again, there is fabric in here, and the last thing I want to do is cut it, so I'm going to follow along this top. My fingers and heart is crossed like a pretzel that this is correct. Oh, wow. Okay. So because this is a Chinese-inspired Empress dress, I wanted to make sure that I got as adequate and appropriate as fabric as possible. So we actually purchased our fabric overseas from China because we did want a authentic silk Chinese brocade. And it's gorgeous. So I'm going to pull it out of the bag now. This is the first look at the fabric. I am over the moon. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way and I'll lay it out and we can take a look at the pattern on it. So again, I purchased this fabric online. You can see that it's fraying, so I am going to have to serge the ends. But, oh, looks like my camera went blurry on us. There we go, refocus. This is gorgeous. Now, I have my fingers crossed that this, yeah, so pretty. So we're actually looking at the back side of the fabric here, and you can't really see the pattern, but when I flip it over, you can see the sheen in the camera, and that is the pattern. Let's see if I can get it closer to the camera for you. It's a red on red, so it's a red embroidered brocade on red silk. This is gorgeous. Now I only hope that this is wide enough for my bottom or for my skirt pieces. That way I won't have to do any cutting or skewing. However, I anticipated having to alter the pattern behind me for this fabric because it is only so wide, but this is, and I was worried for nothing. This is gorgeous. It's heavy, it's thick too, it's heavy duty. I was going to line this, but I got 15 yards, or 15 meters, because, you know, different scale of measurement, and it's cut, it's only got one cut in it, so I don't have to worry about there being a bunch of remnants inside this. And I can tell it only has one cut in it too because it's fraying on one side and it's fraying exactly on the opposite side. Okay, so I'm really excited then. The fabric is fantastic. I'm going to take a couple pictures right now before I forget so I can post them up later. And hopefully it'll be able to give you guys a better look at this beautiful pattern on here. Let's see here. And it wasn't too pricey either, which is nice. I wonder, let's see here, if I can get a couple of the designs to lay out. Yeah, so you can kind of see in the camera above that you see these big circles, and they are just emphasized parts of the already existing pattern on here. Oh, that one definitely shows. Wonderful. So before I just start hacking apart this really beautiful embroidered silk, I need to take apart the dress behind me. I'm trying to think about where to put this so it's out of the way. Right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just... Whoop. Originally I had pinned this all together and then stitched it. I then pinned alterations that I needed to do. So I'm going to just take it all apart now. Which is kind of nerve-wracking all on its own because I am going to have to seam rip a bunch of it. But once I seam rip the pieces apart, then I'm going to use those pieces to trace onto the beautiful fabric that I just pulled out. So yeah, I've actually marked the waistband, and I'm going to cut the waistband all the way around because I want to add these pieces to this back. So there are some edits that I'm going to do, but I'm just going to start hacking and slashing. Again, a little nerve-wracking because it looks so great on the mannequin right now that I don't want to take all these apart and then it looks like shit later. When I take this apart, I'm going to mark extra pieces. So for the neckline, I can see here is what the seam line that I have. So I'm going to just draw it in lightly right now. And I'm going to do it on the other side too. And I'm literally just drawing right over my the pins, not my nail, sorry, the pins that I had placed. Because this attaches, I'm just gonna kind of give it some notches. Something to go back to on a reference. Alright. What I will be doing is I'm going to be creating a slip underneath that is another skirt from the same exact pattern. That way when I bustle the back, it kind of gives some body to it. I will tack it to the actual dress. That way when it's bustled, it all kind of gathers together, but it will be a separate... What's going on here? So here's the collar. I'm labeling everything as I take it off, just to be safe. Because I'm working with the fabric, I put my beverage in a hopefully spill-proof container. The last thing I wanted was to accidentally spill something on that fabric. I've marked the center of points on this. I've marked extra darts. I'm gonna even mark them more now. So I'm just unpinning everything and hope the registration marks that I made stay. Sorry, until I get this off the mannequin, it's kind of a crappy view. Let's see here, if I leave this. Oh, here we go. I'm trying to think of where I can start cutting. This makes me really nervous because once you cut, you can't like put it back together. So again, I'm cutting the pieces that I added to the skirt top. And you'll see here in a second why. So I'm trying to put extra pins to make sure that these pieces that I'm cutting stay attached to the top. The goal is to have the dress sewn together completely by the end of next week. So we do have quite a bit to work on. The lace will come in by the end of next week and we want to start applying it. Alright. Now I should be able to take this up more. I've also labeled where I need to add more seam allowance. I'm just repositioning some pins because I'm noticing I got them stuck to the mannequin, like the actual mannequin dress form. So I'm just kind of neatly tacking things off. So the top is still going to be attached until I seam rip all the sections apart. I'm just gonna keep snipping around and around. And hope for the best. So I do know that as I am cutting this, I am taking away the seam allowance. Is there a pin there? For the top of the skirt that would attach to the shirt or the blouse top. So I am going to have to add an extra seam allowance to both the bottom of the top and then the top of the bottom, if that makes sense. so we've officially cut all the way around now. Nerve-wracking and exciting all at the same time. If somebody would have asked me years ago if they thought I was going to be making my own wedding dress, I would have laughed at them. But here I am now doing it. Just adjusting some pieces with some pins quickly. Alright. So there's the top. It's got 2 darts in it, one at the waist and one at the bust. The collar will be split into 2 pieces as well, one for the right side and one for the left. We won't sell them as one giant piece. And there will be a really big zipper in this thing. Looks like a zipper. I'll leave these in because they're adding to the skirt sides. Jousting my dress form in the bust with some needles. I'm sorry. I guess it'll go a lot easier if I'm not. Oh. And there's the skirt. Put the dress form out the way for now. So now I gotta break these back down into their initial pieces. There are some things that I believe I can do better than the original pattern pieces that I use. However, I don't want to get too cocky. So with the shoulders, I see the new lines that I need to make, so I'm going to draw those on with Sharpie. So all of my lines were done in a red thread. And now I can take these out. We did a based stitch initially, and you can watch it on the Twitch stream video, which I think has been archived now to my YouTube, but a based stitch, so I was able just to pull that red right out because I didn't double back over my ends, and now these pieces are separate. So when you are doing mock-ups, basting is a really, really, really quick and easy technique to stitch it all together, do some fitting, and then be able to easily pull those strings right back out when need be. So I'm just going to go back over my sew line. And I'm going to stick and do the other side too. Now what I do want to make sure is that I kind of start and stop at the same point on both sides. So I'm going to line it up and just kind of do some general marking, just to be on the safe side that everything is absolutely even as best as possible. So it looks like this would have followed my marks anyways, which is always delightful to hear and see. Then I can remove my needle, find that string again. Again, basting. Woohoo! It's separate. So it's going to be easy to break down my back instead of my front first. So upper back, we've got, what is this? The right or left side? If this is on my back, left. Actually, this is the right side. Just kidding. And this is the left side. I'm making sure to make notes of adding 3/4 of an inch. Usually I will do like, I don't know, less than ½ inch for my seam allowance, but because this is a really big seam of connecting my top to my bottom, I want to make sure I got a little bit of wiggle room. Better be safe than sorry. I'm going to start by taking the sides off the, or the back off the front, because that's how I sewed it. So again, I'm just gonna draw my marks. I realized when doing this mock-up too that I need to be careful with how my seams are laying and make sure that they're laying the exact same on either side. When I was tossing this together the first time around, I didn't take that into account. So again, just after drawing my lines, pulling out my baste stitches, and it just separates so easily. I'm going to put letters that way it's kind of foolproof when I go back to it. Again, I'm just going through, marking the lines that I initially sewed. I know that this, I'm doing dashes now, will have to get folded over. And that'll happen when I line it, because I am going to line the entire dress. Reason being, when I go to sew the lace appliques onto the dress, you're going to be able to see the gold threads on the underside of the red fabric. I don't want you to be able to see that in photos at all if the dress is not laying perfectly flat, or if I'm moving, or if it's bustled. So I'm going to line it all. I've got the fabric, hopefully, for it. So let's just keep going. I forgot to mark it before I pulled the thread out, but luckily I can still see the holes. So we've got 2 pieces ready. To be cut from the final fabric, and I'm actually going to trying to figure out how to snip the collar. So those pieces are good to go. We're going to now move along to the other side. And again, I'm leaving some of the pins in just to make sure that the modifications and alterations I made stay, and I don't overlook them when I transfer this pattern to the final fabric. I'm sorry if you can hear the fan. I actually opened up the windows in the house, all the windows, because it's a nice cool day outside. Hello, Smellums. This is the ultimate personal project. If you read the header, where is it, over here? Right there. It says exactly what it is. And it's mine. We just opened up the imported fabric. It's a Chinese silk embroidered brocade. It's gorgeous. I'm going to post pictures up on Instagram because I'm keeping it away from Facebook since Facebook is mostly family oriented, and I'm just going to put it up for the fun people on Instagram to see. So, yeah. The ultimate of personal projects from a female standpoint, that is. I guess if a male was making a wedding dress, it might not be as exciting for them. I don't know. To each their own. So again, once I'm drawing over the original stitch marks, I'm just pulling out the base stitch. Because we didn't double back over it, we're able just to pull those threads right apart. An easy way when doing mock-ups. So we'll go back to the top. We're going to finish making all of our marks on this side. So again, I'm taking my Sharpie and I'm going over all of these sewing lines. That way when I transfer this to the right fabric, everything is perfect. I'd rather measure and mark 16 times and cut once. Especially when you don't have time to order more fabric and wait a month for it to be shipped to you. So I've marked over my lines again. I'm just looking for that free string end, thread end, and I'm going to pull it out, pulling out my base stitch and separating my pattern pieces from one another again. Some people choose to hand base stitch, some people choose to use a machine. I personally use a machine when I'm just doing a basting, but I will not double back at the beginning or the end. That way I can easily just pull it right out. So let's see here. Oops. Just putting extra marks on my fabric so I know what goes where. 2 more pattern pieces. So now we're moving to the bodice, the front of the dress, the bust part. I've got 2 darts. There's nothing fancy about those. I've already marked them. I can pull the thread out. You'll see where my triangles open up at. That's good to go, which means this side's good. That triangle is still marked. We're good there. I initially marked my collar because I thought I was going to cut and take it down some. Due to having put the actual collar on top of the collar of the bust, I don't need these alterations anymore. I was going to take it in on the sleeve as well, but I think having a little shoulder cap will be nice. Oh, pardon me. I might still drop the armpit a ½ inch, but I believe that when I do my lining, I can accommodate that into attaching the inside to the outside. So the only thing I need to worry about right now is making sure that the bust for this bottom part is on point. So to make, or not the bust, sorry, the darts for these bottom points. So to make the darts for these guys, we have 3 points, almost just like a triangle. I've got to then find 3 points for these homemade guys down here. It's going to be a little interesting. That's kind of why I waited. I tried to stitch, I think if I come, yeah. So here's the top of the skirts. I'm just going to cut those. That way I can open up. Ooh, those are some really wonky handmade darts there at the bottom that I just Mod Podge. So I got to clean those up a bit. Again, we want everything to be as even and symmetrical as possible. So I'm marking the center, and I'm going to fold this in half. Because I chose muslin, it is a very see-through, transparent fabric to work with when creating patterns. So I'm just making sure I've got it even from the bottom to the top. This pattern was originally cut on the fold, that is why it's creasing fairly easily. So this has 3 lines here, and I'm just going to kind of talk out loud as I'm problem solving to myself. This line here and this line here what met, and this one here was the overlap from the inside. So like, I know that that's how it was laying, but at the same time that's just not. So this matches up with one of the bottom, but it was here. Here's where it matched up. This line here. So if I make it so those, I'm trying to evenly place this dart, these darts down here, with my skirt. And I'm almost tempted to just leave them and not mark them and let it be something that I later do. My only problem is how I mimic it to the lining if I kind of wing it. That's the dilemma. Oh well. It is not a necessity to spend ample amounts of time on right now to dwell on. We've got more that we can just keep moving along to. And we can problem solve that one out when it comes to it. So now that my top is good to go, my top pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces for the top. Now let's open up the skirt. So just like with the top, I added pieces to the bottom, but I still am going to have to add that seam allowance to the top of each of the skirt pieces because I did not do that when I cut it just a couple minutes ago. These are a little longer string pieces, so I don't know if they're going to pull out as elegantly and easily as the shorter pieces did. Let's give it a go. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to do a little bit of seam ripping to get them started at least. All right. It might be easier if I just cut it in sections. That way I only had to rip out so much at a time. think. Yeah. Cha! Just ripping pieces. So this section is proving more challenging to just pull out. And again, there could be a number of factors that go into play. I'm sure since it's such a long piece of thread, I handled the top fabric when I was altering it quite a bit, and I'm sure that worked the fibers of the fabric a little bit. The only person, the only creature that played with the skirt was my cat, as it seemed the most adequate spot to lay, which means I'm going to have to hide it once I get the actual fabric on. So another reason I chose red thread is because it's bright and I can see it vividly against the white or off-white background. This is definitely not as easy as the top. Womp womp. What I did was I went through and made a bunch more cut marks, hoping that the smaller pieces would be easier to pull, and that's proving to be correct. I feel like I just had a dumb moment with myself. Is it safe to order sacrificial cat fabric? Safe to order sacrificial cat fabric. I don't know the answer to that question. Whatever floats your boat, yo. Sacrificial cat fabric. Stitch just anything that, so like he sees me working right now on this. And because he sees that I'm spending a lot of time with this project, with this fabric, he wants to spend time with this fabric, with this project, and knows that if he's by this fabric, by this project, I will inevitably be paying him more attention because he's usually doing something he's not supposed to. Alright, so we broke the skirt apart by breaking that that hole. We've only got a bunch more panels to take apart. One really nice thing about the brocade that I did pick up is that there is no right or wrong direction. So as long as I'm going up or down long ways, the pattern will be the same. Because if you have to keep it with the grain of your fabric, sometimes you end up going through more meters or yards than you had anticipated. Learning what I learned with the last one, I'm putting a lot more cut marks. Unfortunately, it looks like the mailman is here to bring me another package for the shenanigans for tomorrow's Twitch stream. So I'm going to quickly wrap this one up. I'm going to try to get back on tonight. I'll stop what I'm doing because I know this is so much fun and you guys want to watch. I'm gonna go quickly meet him at the door to get what I need. If I can't get back on tomorrow, today, I will be back on tomorrow afternoon at noon Eastern Standard Time. Look for updates on Instagram. So until then, peace out, guys. Sorry I had to cut it short.